Hey guys, Jimmy again. So in this video, I wanted to go over my plans to do a giveaway and also tips regarding how to assess a card's condition and how best to keep that card as pristine as you can. So I personally use sleeves that are available in the Elite Trainer boxes. If you were to buy those sleeves separately, usually people sell them for like $5.99, $6.99 for a pack of 60, I believe, or 65. A lot of people use penny sleeves. We're called penny sleeves as well. Those are thinner sleeves. They're more flexible than these, but I do prefer these personally. The only recommendation I'd have is when you do sleeve up a card in these, like I said, they are more rigid than penny sleeves. So do be careful not to catch an edge as you're placing the card into the sleeve. But otherwise, I've been very happy with those. I also use top loaders, so I'll insert the sleeve and the card into a top loader. Top loaders help prevent the card from warping, as I'll show you on this Clefairy. You'll have slight warps to cards that aren't well protected in that regard. So that's a good way to prevent that from happening. I also want to mention that, I will not necessarily, because of the expense, you are going to have, loading each card into a top loader after I've gotten several of that same card. If it's not like an ultra rare, similar to any of these, then I'm going to be more inclined to put it in just a sleeve and not a top loader as well. Top loaders for a pack of like 35, they'll run you for like $2.99. So that's just to give you an idea of expense for those. So now we'll go into how to assess the condition of cards. So one thing I want to talk about first is older, less modern cards. You have the holographic area here. So around the illustration of the Pokemon, you're going to be susceptible to print lines. See that line right there, how straight that line is? That is not an accidental scratch or anything. That's a print line. So print lines, often came on cards in especially the Wizards of the Coast era, because it was just something it just came with the territory. You would get print lines. So that's one thing you want to look at when assessing the condition of any base set cards or Wizard of the Coast cards, even some modern cards you also want to look at as well. So one thing you got to consider is anytime the illustration of the Pokemon is occupying more of the holographic portion of the card, the better chance you have of not having print lines or not having any other damage to the holographic. That is the least susceptible area to any damage, is the actual Pokemon's illustration. So one thing as well, you want to look at the portion of the card that contains the text. Does it have any silver scratches? Is there any scratches that are apparent? No, it does not appear so on this one. You have warping, so that's something to consider as well. You have, I believe I have a crease right there. So, if I were to send this in, this would probably automatically get a 5, given that crease. Creases of that kind will almost always go down to a 5. Not too much edging, so you want to look at the edges at each side. You have the top, a little bit of whitening. You want to consider how deep the whitening is. Is it, this whitening right here extends into the card a little bit. This little portion here, not so much. So what is the severity of the whitening? You want to look at centering. How even are the borders? This border would, in my opinion, is a little bit lighter than this left border. The left border looks to be a little wider. So that's something to consider there. You have top to bottom. It looks pretty even, but like I said, you have that whitening there. Not too much whitening to the bottom or left. You have that corner there. But you have that crease and you have that little whitening there. You also have this print line right there, among some others. I see some over here. So you have the print lines, you have the crease, you have that little whitening to the top, you have this left border being a little bit thicker than this right border, this card would probably get a 5. Because it's not, damage to the card isn't that excessive aside from that crease and then that little bit of whitening. Like I said, a little bit of scratching the hollow foil, but the most severe thing is going to be that crease. If you were to consider this card without the crease being present, I would say this could get a 6 or a 7 perhaps. More so likely a 6. But that's just to give you kind of an idea there of what we're looking for. You have this Aerodactyl card. So one thing I want to illustrate again is the difference between how much space the Pokemon occupies in the holographic portion of the card. You would notice that the Aerodactyl does occupy just a little bit more space. Also, any background illustration, you'll see that this has that little kind of this foliage in the background, whereas the Clefairy is just a pink background. You're going to be always more susceptible to someone noticing some damage to the hollow foil area when the background is plain, when the background is bright. This, is damaged by no account, is it not? But the fact that it has a darker illustration in the background can help it out. The fact that the Aerodactyl does occupy more of the holographic portion of the card can help it out. But we'll give this a quick rundown here. So you want to look at, again, borders. A little bit heavier, I would say, on the right side as opposed to the left side. Otherwise, top to bottom, maybe a little bit heavier on the top than the bottom. So you'll see a little thicker. So a little thicker to the right than the left, and a little thicker on the top than the bottom. So that's something you want to consider. You have the scratching the hollow foil area. I wouldn't say any of those are straight lines. I wouldn't necessarily say they're print lines. It does look like just scratching. Do we have any scratches to the text portion of the card? Do we have any silver scratches there? No, we do not. We have a little bit of marks here on the right side, on the right border. You have those black marks there. I believe those, sometimes you can wipe those off, but those look to be there. We have a crease right there, a crease right there. You have edge wear to the bottom and to the right primarily, also the left. This card would probably get a 4 if I were to give it a grade, because it does have those 2 creases. Also, wear to the edges is a little on the excessive side, so it probably would go below the 5 that will be typically given to a card that exhibits a crease and not necessarily that much excess damage. So this card would probably get a 4 if I were to guess. So those are the things you want to consider. Like I said as well, we'll compare again. We have a Gyarados here. This Gyarados has a darker illustration in the background. So, if this card were fresh out of the pack, this one I would believe would have a greater likelihood of attaining a 10 than, either the Aerodactyl or the Clefairy. Just given that the Pokemon does occupy a large portion of the hollow foil, and that it does have a darker illustration in the background. Sometimes that can make some minor print lines a little less evident to those that are grading it. There is one card, I believe it's a Slowking from Neo Destiny, I believe it is. In that card's illustration, if you want to look it up, the Slowking occupies just this right side of the hollow foil. So the entire left side of that card is just illustration. So that is one of the cards that's actually notably hard to get a 10 on, because for that very reason, the Slowking does not occupy a large part of the hollow foil area. So it's going to be more susceptible to print lines or any visible damage to the holographic portion of the card. Now I want to get into modern cards. Modern cards, you don't really have, on basic hollow foil cards, you do not have a lot of opportunity for print defects right out of the pack. So that's why they've put an extra emphasis on centering. So a little heavier, I would say, on the left and the right. Top to bottom, possibly a little heavier on the top, but not too exceptionally bad there. So, like I said, mostly a little heavier on the left than the right. But not much not much to worry about as far as the holographic. Like I said, not a lot of susceptibility to print lines in the modern cards. So what they're going to do now is they're going to put extra emphasis for you to attain a 10. They're going to put emphasis on centering and then edge wear to the back. This card is the Mewtwo GX from Shining Legends. This one, I did believe when I was looking at it, possibly a little heavier to the top than the bottom, but otherwise this card is a good example of something that at face value this would probably attain a 10. You see that small silver border to the left, also an equally small silver border to the right. Not much of a difference there. You have the bottom edge as opposed to the top edge, pretty even there. So on that card, the most important thing would be the appearance of the back of the card. So another one I want to show you is Bill's Maintenance. So this one also pretty well centered, a little bit heavier to the left than the right, and I believe the bottom to the top is a little off. So one thing to consider there is trainers. Full art trainers are usually off center. So they're going to be, in my opinion, most difficult to attain a 10 in a full art trainer. The back of the card also a little off center, a little heavier to the bottom and the right than the left and the top. You also do have a line there that it is difficult to see there, but no whitening to any of the corners or the edges. I would give this, it's most certainly going to get a 9. Sometimes for centering, they even can dock you to an 8. It's not typical, but sometimes that is the way they do it. So this one, in my opinion, would get a 9. But anytime you have, another thing I want to go into real quick is anytime you have a Pokemon whose illustration goes into the border of the card, like a GX card, you'll see on the right side of the card the illustration goes into the border, and on the top side as well. Anytime the illustration goes into the border of the card, it can make it a little bit less noticeable to graders that it is off center. So you'll see that right side border is a little thicker than the left side border. I'm not saying that that's something they're not going to notice, but I'm telling you that the fact that the illustration goes into the border of the card on the imperfect side can sometimes help. I've seen times where, cards have, not necessarily been noticed for that imperfection because of the illustration extending into the border. One other thing I want to show you that can happen to your cards in the modern cards is a tapering effect on the edges. It happens with full art cards most of all. You'll see that you can see these fine ridges in the edge of the card. You can see that there, and you can see how it kind of appears raised at the edges. That's something that can happen primarily with full art cards. That has an imperfect impression there too, right there. But that can happen with modern cards as well. So that's one thing you want to be aware of. There are still some imperfections that can come straight out of the pack that are beyond your control. But I've shown pretty much everything that can happen to your cards straight out of the pack, whether modern or Wizards of the Coast era. So that's something to be aware of too. It's beyond your control, but that's something that would most certainly dock that to an 8. Perhaps they could even be more harsh because of that little indent on the back of the card. But now to get into what I intend to give away, I will complete this giveaway when we hit 50 subscribers. So I'm hoping you guys can help me out regarding that. Please do what you can to share. I'll do what I can on my end to help increase the popularity of the channel. So I am going to be completing this giveaway, like I said, when we get to 50 subscribers. What I'd like you to do is comment Clefairy, just because Clefairy doesn't get enough recognition, right? So comment Clefairy, like, and subscribe. So like, subscribe, comment Clefairy. For this, introductory giveaway, I'd appreciate it if the winner would be in the United States, just because I don't necessarily want to pay for international shipping quite yet. But I do intend to do a giveaway in the future as well that, hopefully I can do that for an international watcher at that time. But like I said, 50 subscribers. Do like, subscribe, comment Clefairy, and I'll show you what you will win. We've got Charizard GX from the Hidden Fates tins. I'm going to show you this one. Some of these do have some small imperfections to the edge. You see that small imperfection to the left bottom edge. But otherwise, they are nice cards. These, I just have so many of them that I figured I'd go ahead and give these away. So I'll continue to show these. You got Victini from the Generations box. You have Giratina from the new Ultra Prism and Unified Minds small portfolio pack. And you have another Charizard GX, another Charizard GX, another Charizard GX. I do like the illustration on this Charizard GX, actually. Like it better than the one that was put in the set. I wish they'd almost made the other one a promo. So then you've got Gyarados GX, also from the Hidden Fates tin. Another Gyarados GX from Hidden Fates tin. Another Gyarados GX. Victini again from the Generations box. We have a Mewtwo from the first movie. Once again, I just want to show you the condition of the card. Not in too bad a condition, but I wouldn't recommend, getting it graded or anything. Tapu Lele from 3-pack blister has a nice hollow bleed there. Pretty nice. Then a Celebi from the 3-pack blister as well. Can't remember what set it was packaged for. Melmetal from a 1-pack blister, because it has a different hollow foil pattern in the back, you can tell. Nidoking Break from Evolutions, I believe. Eevee holographic from Hidden Fates, a rare Clefable from Hidden Fates, Golem rare from Hidden Fates, and then some uncommon cards as well. So yeah, once again, any questions regarding the giveaway, any questions regarding the other content in this video, do let me know. I appreciate you watching, and do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Comment Clefairy, and please do be in the States to qualify. All right, thanks very much. Have a good day, guys.